Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with Hernando County Extension, and I'm here today with my regular co-host, Lily Browning, who is our
I,
Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Is that the correct term?
Florida Friendly Landscape Program Coordinator.
Ooh, okay. I want to get the title correct there. Um, and we were supposed to have a special guest here today, Dr. Whitney Elmore with Pasco County Extension, and she is not able to join us today because she's feeling a little bit under the weather with a sore throat, probably from all this cold weather that we've gotten the last couple days. I know my feet are still cold at the moment, although it is warming up outside and it's going to be a beautiful day today.
Yes.
It has been kind of cold recently, so hopefully your plants survived it.
See, my feet are warm.
Okay. Yeah, I need to get some socks kind of like that. Not exactly like that, but kind of like that.
You don't want the pink stripes? Come on.
So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the comments underneath the video here. I did get one question emailed to me a couple days ago that we'll go over in just a moment here. But so Lily, everything in your yard kind of survived the cold?
Oh no. I was just looking this morning. I had some pretty pictures that I took yesterday with frost on, some of my things.
I saw those.
Yeah, but I mean, they're natives. So even if, and they're looking soggy and saggy today, but it's winter, so that's going to happen. And, they're going to come back. And I have some plumeria out there that, of course.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, and the leaf, I noticed somebody had sent in something to one of the Florida nature or whatever groups on Facebook asking, oh, look, I have this and that spot on my plumeria. And I'm thinking it's just time, it's going to lose its leaves. So it was already starting to do that, but now the leaves are sagging there looking very, very sad. So what I'll probably do is just bring in that. I mean, they're only like this big.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring it into the garage over the winter. That's the thing about plumeria is you can stick it in a dark place all winter long. In fact, I don't know how old these plumeria trunks were when I refound them in my garage in the spring. They could have been several years old, and I thought, oh, well, let me just stick them in some soil, and I did, and they leafed out all summer long. So that's the cool
totally
thing
normal that they're going to lose all their leaves. I saw somebody posted on a Facebook group asking about whether their gingers would survive the cold weather or not, and they had covered them with like an entire bale of hay to keep them warm.
Oh, wow.
But it's normal. Gingers are supposed to completely die back for the winter.
You know what mine did when in another home, I had a spiral ginger.
Yeah.
And I've got feedback. Hearing myself echo. It was in the city of Brooksville where I lived, and I had a whole bunch of spiral ginger, and it would freeze every single year, turn brown and freeze, but stay there standing up, tall and proud and, brown, never moving. And every year in the spring, there'd be new growth coming up, and I literally had to remove the old dead growth that was still just standing there, just as nice as could be. So it very rarely freezes to the roots. And I don't think anything did. We didn't stay cold that long in this particular cold snap.
Yeah, I have a fire bush, and I don't even really see any damage on it, so it didn't get cold enough. But it's in my backyard, which is somewhat protected. I had some bananas back there, and a leaf or two got a little cold scorched, but that's normal also.
Well, the fire bush that I took the beautiful picture of with the frost all over it is looking less beautiful today. It looks like wet
Oh, yeah.
lettuce hanging there. And I expect it to die back, but it's going to come back. That's what most plants do.
Yeah, it's totally normal. A lot of winters for a fire bush to freeze back pretty far.
Right.
But then in early to mid-March, you can cut it back to waist high, knee high. I've even cut them all the way back to like ankle high.
Well,
And
these are
boom,
babies
they
to
come right
begin
back.
with. These are babies to begin with, so they're
Yeah.
only knee high as is. But somebody asked me on Facebook if they should prune their fire bush, and I'm assuming, you know, it's an adult-sized fire bush. And I said, well, if what you're asking is regarding the flowers, because that's what I was addressing. Oh, there's Linda. Yay.
She liked your frosty pictures.
Yes. What I was addressing was don't cut your spring blooming things now, or you won't have spring blooms. You should have done that by June 30th. So I told him, well, as far as fire bush goes, it's going to bloom all year. So as far as blooming time, it doesn't matter when you prune it. But firebush is generally a frost and freeze sensitive plant. Pruning encourages new growth. New growth is very susceptible to frost and freeze damage, and then can, because of its close proximity to the core of the plant, bring it in and cause a lot more damage. Therefore, I suggested not pruning the firebush until mid-March. So.
Yeah. For most of those different blooming plants, I like to tell people, if there's any way you can, just try to prune them back heavily once a year in early to mid-March, you know, after all the frosts and freezes are over with. Because if you prune them back heavily just once, then let them grow after that, they're going to flower. Your hibiscus, you know, works well for hibiscus, for firebush, thryallis, a lot of different plants. They're going to grow back and flower and grow and flower. But if you keep trimming them and keep tweaking them all summer long to keep them that exact right height and exactly flat or round or whatever it might be, it seems like you're always pruning the buds off, and now you're going to get very little flowering.
Well, and if you have azaleas or camellias or spring blooming plants, if you didn't have them pruned by June 30th, don't prune them if you want to see flowers. You know, in well, camellias are like January and February, right? And azaleas would be February, March. Yeah. So your spring bloomers, it's too late to prune them now if you expect to see flowers in the spring. Things that prune all year long, it's not a good idea to prune anything right now except deciduous trees. Until the danger of frost is over, you know, because of that new growth issue. Because as I was saying in my class, we have 3 days of winter in spurts. Mm-hmm. This 3 days of winter, then it gets warm for a while. Then we'll have another 3-day winter. Then it gets warm for a while. Then we'll have another 3-day winter. And what happens in the warm spaces between our little winter cycles of 3 days is you get that new growth. And you don't, it may happen naturally, but you shouldn't force it either, because then you're causing more problems.
Yeah, it's probably that time of year where you should worry more about the holidays and baking cookies and preparing for Christmas and shopping, and just leave the plants alone until spring, and then clean them up, shape them up, cut them way back, and let them go after that.
But wait till March 15th has traditionally been our no freezer frost after March 15th. We used to be able to set our calendar by that.
It's generally safe, although
we've had a few years now where it's been April 1st. Yeah. So
I've seen devastating cold fronts come through April 1st.
Yeah.
And do a lot of damage and wipe out people's spring vegetable gardens, everything that you have coming up, and then you have to replant. So it can happen.
It can. And the weather is, if it's anything, it's unpredictable anymore. Exactly. Like I said, those were the days when we could tell you it was going to rain in the summer between 4 and 4:20 p.m. every day. those were also the days we could tell you it will not freeze after March 15th. And now all that's out the window, and the weather does something similar, but just not as predictable. So now what I'm going to have to do with what today looks like wilted wet lettuce leaves on my plants that were zapped some by the cold is I'm going to have to live with the ugly and leave it there, ignore it, don't look at it, until the danger of frost is over. Because in those cycles of our 3-day winters and the warm fronts in between, we'll get some new growth. So then we have another cold front, and if it's an even stronger cold front or gets even colder, that dead-looking material does help protect that new growth.
It does.
Yeah.
It provides a little bit of cover and protection for it.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's winter. It's okay if things are, if things look dead, it's winter. It's all right.
Exactly. It's normal. It's not going to, look green and beautiful year round unless you live down in Miami. Right. So I know that we have people, tuning in from all over the state. So if you're much further south than Hernando County, things are going to be a little bit different for you. Your huge cold fronts, it gets down to 50. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think last year I noticed frostproof wasn't.
Yeah. It
wasn't frostproof. Yeah.
It's just usually kind of frostproof.
Yes.
So we have a question here about a flapjack, which is a kalanchoe, and there are, oh my God, literally thousands of different species of them.
There are.
Says it's taken over the pot and would like to know how to transplant it to another pot without killing it. I have a picture I can text to you and what type of soil to use.
Bring it in the cold.
Exactly. There's a really good chance that it will freeze, all depending on where you live. Like I said, if you're down in, Broward County or areas further south than that, you don't have to worry about that. If you're here in Hernando or anywhere north, you want to bring it in when it gets really cold. And I had to do that the other day. I do have some little papaya transplants started. They're about 6 inches tall. So they're sitting in the garage right now. I'll probably take them back out this afternoon. But I just want to protect them from the really cold weather at night.
Right.
So if your plant has taken over the pot, you may want to transplant it to a larger pot. That's generally pretty easy to do. You need to make sure it's a larger pot, and then take the plant that you have. And what I do is I put my hand over the plant. I grab the bottom of the pot like this. I turn it upside down, and the plant will come out. You want to be very careful to put it in the new pot at the same depth. You don't want to plant it a lot deeper, and you don't want to plant it a lot higher either where roots are exposed. You just want to put it in at the same depth, and any quality potting soil is going to work just fine. I always caution people against sometimes the really, really cheap, I don't want to say cheap, inexpensive, or the potting soil or bags of compost that are on sale for 99 cents a bag might not be the best way to go.
It's not dirt cheap?
Yeah. Yes, the dirt cheap ones, if you pick the bag up and it feels really heavy, or it's wet, or it smells bad.
Yeah, that's more like garden soil than potting soil.
Yeah, you want to use a quality potting soil because it has pine bark in it and vermiculite and perlite to make it light, where it's going to drain really well, but still
especially a succulent. Yeah, especially a succulent like a kalanchoe.
Yeah, because succulents, and really this goes for any kind of house plants, you don't want to overwater them. And I think that I'm probably the only person I know of that underwaters them.
No, me. I forget that my houseplants exist.
Then that's two of us. The two of us underwater, but I think everybody else in the world overwaters every day or so. They put a little bit of water on, a little bit of water on. You don't want to do that.
No.
You want to drag it outside or put it in the sink and water it really, really well, maybe once a week, and then let the soil thoroughly dry out before you water it again. Because
my only house plants, which were on the porch, I did protect them a little. I built them a little shelter. Are like 4 pots of the same Swedish ivy that was my mother's. It just keeps, well, I'll stick some more in this pot over here. So, it's a heritage one. But yeah, sometimes I walk by it and I'm like, I haven't watered you since I do not remember when.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's in Flagler, so he's further north. So he does need to protect that.
Yeah, he's in Flagler County, so you probably want to, if they're outside, bring them in on those cold nights, and you're going to have as many or more cold nights than we do. And we have another question here. Linda uses earth boxes for her vegetable garden. Should I fill the bottom reservoir with water before the cold temp? Does water make it even colder for the roots? I've never used earth boxes. I'm familiar with them. I've never purchased one and tried growing in it, but it is like a enclosed raised bed garden, and it has a water reservoir in the bottom that you fill with water, and the soil wicks it up. So it's really good for, like, it'd be good for me and Lily, who don't water our plants on a very timely basis, I guess.
Well, if I had vegetables, I might pay more attention to them.
Yeah. I need to go out and run the sprinklers when we're done here today to put some water on my garden too. Just for a few minutes. It's for a vegetable garden. And I don't use the entire property sprinklers. I put together my own system with PVC pipe and sprinkler heads and a garden.
All right, as long as it's a targeted system.
Oh, it's very targeted.
Okay.
It's just I don't have the patience to stand there holding a garden hose. I get bored in about 10 seconds.
That's why you're allowed to do that.
Yes.
That's why there's no restriction on watering with a garden hose, as long as it has a self-canceling nozzle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you dropped it, or put it down, it's not spewing water. But that's why that is allowed anytime, anywhere, because we know you'll get bored doing that and you're not going to waste water.
But with the earth box, it does have the bottom reservoir. And if you fill that with water and it's full of water and it's sitting outside and we get down below freezing, that water could freeze. And when water freezes, it expands a little bit and it tends to crack the container that it's in. So it depends on exactly how cold it's going to get and where your earth box is located. Is it in a spot where it's going to get as cold as the air in your yard and get below freezing? Should that water reservoir fill with water freeze, it could crack the plastic earth box. So you may want to avoid that, but you want to make sure that whether it be a vegetable garden or your hibiscus or flowers or whatever it is properly watered. Because what happens is on a really cold night, when you cover something with sheets, you're not holding in the heat that the plant is generating, because plants don't really generate heat. You're trying to hold in the heat coming out of the soil. And moist soil is going to get warmer during the sunny day and give off more heat at night than bone dry soil. So I'm not sure how well that answers your question. It's one of those it depends kind of situations. So you want to make sure that the soil in your earth box is properly moist, not overly wet, but not bone dry. And if it's going to get really cold, you probably want to avoid having that bottom reservoir filled with water.
Standing water, yeah, that could turn into an ice block. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to turn into an ice block, and it may expand and crack the plastic. Because I know if you fill a jug of water and put it in your freezer, when it freezes, it cracks the jug. That's because water, when it freezes, expands a little bit and cracks whatever container it's in.
Which, if we were up north, now that you mention that, people up north, if they have rain barrels, they, empty them and put them away for the winter for that reason. That's never going to happen here. The most that will happen is the top quarter of an inch, you might have like a sheet of ice on it, but that whole thing is never going to freeze here in Florida. So we can have the rain barrels all year long.
Yeah, kind of the same situation with exposed water pipes and wrapping them. It's very important up north. Generally not that important down here, although on occasion you hear about broken water pipes, mostly from
I've experienced them,
wells.
so yeah.
Yeah, has yours ever broken on your well?
On my mother's, yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, well, I mean, we don't really worry about that unless it's going to get like below 20 for an extreme amount of time. And then just letting the water drip as long as you don't forget about it, but letting it kind of drip overnight and you have the water moving a little bit, it does help it not freeze. But we wrap ours. We even wrap our hoses, you know, our spigots and stuff outside. Might be overkill, but we do that.
Yeah, sometimes better safe than sorry.
Yeah, but only like if it's going to be, like I said, below 20 for a good period of time.
Okay, I guess we answered Linda's question well enough. So Lori asks, would it be safe to plant potted nursery plants in the ground now? Would they become established enough to survive the winter? And this
probably gets that question. She probably gets that question at the Master Gardener Nursery, so she needs to be able to answer that.
Exactly. So once again, it depends. There are many plants that will survive the cold weather we have here, and they even survive it a whole lot colder. I always kind of laugh on a really, really cold morning. If I'm driving off to work, I see people who have covered their viburnums, and their American holly bushes, and Indian hawthorn with sheets. And basically, if you can grow it up in New Jersey and it doesn't freeze and die, you can grow it down here and it will not freeze and die down here.
You know what is never done up north? Ever? People never cover their landscape plants up north.
Yeah, you're right. They never do. I never saw that till I moved to Florida many years ago.
Because they have plants that will survive.
Exactly. So if it's something that's going to survive cold weather, as in much colder than what we get, it's safe to plant in the ground right now. As a matter of fact, if it's a tree during the winter here in Florida, is the best time to plant a tree, because our Arbor Day is the second Saturday in January. And we're in the process of working on something for Arbor Day. When we have something a little bit more worked out, I'll share it with everybody on here. But that in Florida is the best time to plant a tree, because the tree is going to have time before it warms up in the spring to spread its roots and get settled and get all nicely settled in. Spring comes along and it starts to grow and send out new shoots and new leaves, new flowers if it's a flowering tree, and it works really well. So even though National Arbor Day is April, when is it? April, I think.
I don't know.
Okay, well, if somebody wants to look that up, I think National Arbor Day is April, but Florida, because we're so different here, Florida Arbor Day is the second Saturday in January. So it all depends on
That's our motto. That's our motto when you come in Florida.
Yeah.
It's so different here.
So Lori, it all depends on what kind of plant you're talking about. If it'll take the cold, you can plant it now. If it's something a lot more tender, a hibiscus, a firebush.
April 30th is the National Arbor Day.
Okay, thank you. April 30th is National Arbor Day.
I have the answer box.
So, like I said,
I wouldn't plant right now. I wouldn't feel comfortable planting small, like herbaceous things, because I'd be worried that the roots wouldn't get all that established and the plant could freeze. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on what you're planting. Annuals, of course, go for it. Go for your winter annuals right now. Your pansies, your petunias, snapdragons, foxgloves, alyssum, dianthus. What else can we plant, Bill?
I think that's it. The big ones are pansies, petunias, and snapdragons.
Yeah.
Because they don't mind the cold. They don't mind a little bit of frost even.
I've never seen them react to a freeze.
But if you try planting them in the spring and you try growing them through the summer, it is not going to work out well for long.
Exactly. And I've been here so long, most of my life, so that when I, one late spring, it was May, drove up to Pennsylvania, and I'm looking at these pansies and petunias that were just planted, in these city planters, and my mind's going, bzz, bzz. This is, because I had my Florida mind on, like, what do you have those petunias there for? But that's the time there. Winter is the time here. By beginning of May, they're going to look leggy and ugly, and it'll be time to replace them with your spring or summer annuals.
Okay, let's go to Bill's email inbox here. And Carol sent me a picture a couple days ago of a palm tree. And from the looks of this, it looks like a small palm, maybe an Areca palm, but probably a Majesty palm, something like that, that she has in a container on her porch. And she asks, is this Fusarium? And Fusarium is a fungal disease. It's generally a soil-borne fungus that could be a problem on palm trees. I've seen it infect and kill queen palms, normally queen palms, but it could be a problem with other palms also. But let me make sure that you can see this. Okay, you can see it okay. This is not Fusarium. This is a scale insect that you have on your palm. And fortunately, the best control for scale insects is horticultural oil. And you want to be careful using horticultural oil during the summer when it's very, very sunny and hot, because it can basically fry your plant's leaves. But this time of year is a perfect time of year to use horticultural oil, or you could use neem oil, because that's also an oil type spray insecticide to control scales. And they're very easy to control. You're probably going to have to spray more than once. But what the oil does is it covers those little scale insects and suffocates them and kills them. So this should be pretty easy to control.
And it might not come off. It won't come off. You'll have to scrape it off. If it comes, it's kind of gross, but if you use your thumb and scrape it and it comes off easily, then those scale are dead. If they give you some squishy resistance, then you need to treat again.
Yeah, scales can be a little bit confusing because you'll have scales on a plant and then you spray them with an oil spray, but scales just sit there. They don't run around, they don't crawl, they don't have wings. Well, the males do technically, but most of the scales you see that are a plant pest don't have wings, they just sit there. And then after you spray them, from just looking at them, you can't tell if they're dead or if they're still alive or not. So what you probably want to do is take your fingernail and you can scrape them off or pop them off, or you should be able to gently wipe them off with a damp paper towel. Because what we don't want you to do is to keep spraying dead scales over and over and over and over and over again, because that's just a waste of your oil spray, and you don't really need to do that if you've already killed them.
It smothers them is what happens.
So a lot of times with scales and a lot of other small insect pests, even with an oil spray, you might have to spray more than once to get them all. You want to read the directions on whatever kind of oil spray you're using to see how often it's safe to spray. But plan on probably spraying more than once, but they're pretty easy to take care of on a palm. And there's Carol. Carol is watching today, so she actually got the answer live and in person.
And while you were, oh yay, snapdragons! While you were, while we're talking about, it's cold and cold protection, I think we need to cover a little bit about how you cover plants. If you do have some plants that are sensitive and do need covered. Like we were saying, your hollies, your viburnum, things like that, they don't need covered. But if you have some sensitive plants, if you're going to cover them, you should do it correctly. The most ideal situation is you have something that you can put over them, even a cardboard box. They make like little tents specifically for plant protection like that. In the most ideal situation, you put a cover over it that does not touch the plant at all. That's not always able to happen. I guess I should backtrack and tell you what you're trying to do. As Bill, I think, mentioned, plants don't generate their own heat. When I'm cold, I put on those fuzzy socks that I showed you. I wrap up because my body generates heat. Your body generates heat. Your dog's body generates heat. Mammals do. Plants do not. That's, you can't be like, oh, let me put a cover over you. You look cold. It's that ground that he talked about. We don't have permafrost here. The ground's going to stay. Coldest it's probably going to get is somewhere around 48, right, Bill?
Yes, yeah.
48 to 52.
A really cold night.
Yeah, that's how cold the ground will get. So the air might be 17, but the ground is going to be 48-ish. So with that cover, you're trying to capture the radiant heat from the ground. And all that plant has to be is 33. It doesn't have to be 72 in there. Mm-hmm. So that is what we're trying to accomplish. So when you also drive around and see people make lollipops out of their plants and cover them, they've accomplished nothing. You need to trap that radiant heat from the ground. So you want a cover that reaches all the way to the ground. If there's no way to not touch the plant, you still need to drape the plant. Make sure the cover drapes to the ground and you put some weights on it to hold it down. And you're capturing that radiant heat from the ground. And don't use plastic. Right, Bill?
Yes, because plastic gets just as cold as the air outside. So plastic coming in contact with the plant's leaves are going to basically fry the leaves. It freezes the leaves.
Right. So even old sheets will work fine, or get some frost cloth. Just make sure it reaches the ground so you're trapping that 48-degree ground. And that's what we're trying to accomplish, not wrapping the plants up because they're cold.
And a lot of times, like I mentioned earlier, moist soil is going to warm up and hold more heat than bone dry soil.
Yep.
So if it's going to get really cold tonight, you want to go out in the morning, properly water your vegetable garden, your flowers, whatever it may be. And then during the day, it's going to capture as much heat as it can. It's going to warm up a little bit more. So that gives you a little bit more warmth coming out of the soil that night to work with. And a lot of times, even just your vegetable garden, if you're growing winter vegetable crops, they're going to take the cold a lot better. And a lot of times just making sure that your vegetable garden is properly watered is enough for at night, the warmth coming out of the soil is going to keep everything warm enough.
And usually 9 times out of 10, what happens? How do we get a cold front? What brings a cold front? What comes ahead of that cold front?
Rain.
Band of rains. So it's like nature does that for us. It kind of already knows that. That's really cool how that works together there. Also, Dr. Lester, why don't you explain to the folks why they should not think they're a farmer and turn on their irrigation to blanket their plants with ice?
Yes. And many people might have seen things on TV or maybe in real life, especially if you're anywhere near Plant City where they grow strawberries. You see them running the sprinklers at night to keep the fields and the strawberries a little bit warmer. how that works is you have to have an irrigation system that is constantly applying water to the plant's leaves. And when water changes from liquid water to ice, it technically gives off a very, very tiny bit of heat in the chemical process of changing from liquid form to solid form. And that's the heat that keeps the strawberry plants warm enough so that they get either no freeze damage or less freeze damage. Your sprinkler systems are not going to apply water constantly to your plants. So if you go out there and run your irrigation system all night long on a really cold night, chances are your plants and lawn and everything else are going to suffer even worse damage than if you did nothing. And every time we get a really bad freeze, I didn't see it over the last couple of days, but I'll drive through the neighborhood and I see somebody who ran their sprinklers all night. It's a winter wonderland. Everything is covered with ice. The lawn is covered with ice. And that just does a lot more damage than if you had left it alone. So don't try doing that. Farmers can do that because they have an irrigation system that applies water a certain way. Homeowner irrigation systems are different and it will not work for you.
Because you're going to switch from zone to zone. Yeah, it's going to go from zone 1 to zone 2. And as soon as zone 1 stops, well, then all that ice just turned to 32 and killed everything.
Yep.
Not to mention
encased in ice and getting a lot more damage.
Not to mention the freeze may not coincide with your watering day. And, we're not going to make allowances for that because it's not the proper thing to do. And I mean, you probably won't be happy when you get your water bill if you try to keep it running continuously.
Yeah, it gets very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. So, or, you might find out, oh no, my irrigation system isn't what I thought it was, and something busts and you got to get it repaired. So you also have to weigh out the costs, So it's not recommended for homeowners.
But really, for most people, if you plant the right plants in the right place in your yard, they're going to be able to either survive the winter cold weather, or it's a native plant and it's naturally going to freeze back and look terrible in the winter. You clean it up in March and it's going to grow back and look beautiful all summer long until the next fall. Or if you want to be daring and try growing tropical plants, bananas, papayas, mangoes. I see people experimenting with all kinds of tropical fruits, even as far north as here in Hernando County and citrus. Know in advance that they're going to have to be protected when it gets really cold, and plan in advance to put together a PVC structure, make a teepee with 2x4s or metal pipes or PVC. Plan on being able to cover it, grow it in a very large container, and have a dolly handy so that you can get it into the garage when it gets cold. Just make a plan in advance, and you can experiment with those tropical things. Just if you put a mango tree in the middle of your front yard and you have no plan, when it gets down to 25 degrees, your mango plant is not going to do really well here. So play with tropicals, but know in advance you're going to have to keep them warm and do a little extra work with them.
And 25 he's not exaggerating, that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen 16 and 17, 15. But 25 is not at all unusual. We're not in South Florida here in Hernando.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen very often. So if we get a couple warm winters in a row, for people who have just moved here, they might think, oh, well, it never gets really cold here. And then one year, all of a sudden, they're reminded, wow, yeah, it can get really cold here. Sometimes.
I warn everyone, we haven't had a real winter in a good decade. So if you've only come in the last 10 years, you don't know what kind of winters we have the capacity to have. The thing is, like I said, they last for 3 days. And then it warms up, and then we get another 3-day winter spurt. So,
and it's always been like that because historically, with the citrus industry in Florida, back in the 1800s, they used to grow citrus commercially as far north as Gainesville area, around lakes, because the lake water will keep things a little bit warmer on a cold night. But what would happen is about every 20, 30 years, you get a really bad winter, and it would completely kill the trees to the ground, and people would go broke, and they'd lose their multi-million-dollar empires where they grew oranges and put them on a steamship to New York City. And, you know, it's just, if you read the history of Florida, it's always happened. I know that for anybody familiar with Volusia County, the town of DeBary, Mr. DeBary moved there in sometime in the late 1800s and grew citrus on the banks of the St. Johns River, and would put it on steamships and would go up to Jacksonville and go to New York. And one year he got frozen out here in Hernando County at Chinsegut Manor House. They used to grow citrus there till it got frozen out. That's why now the only commercial citrus you see being grown is basically south of Orlando. Because I remember when they still grew some commercial citrus in Orlando.
All the way from Groveland over, nothing but citrus groves, all the way to Disney World.
Yeah. Yeah, and now partly because of development and the expansion of Orlando in general, and building,
it all worked together. Yeah, those farmers couldn't grow citrus reliably anymore. They don't have Social Security or pension, so when someone offers to buy your land to put a development on it, that's your retirement. Yeah, that's
it is. They offer you millions of dollars for your citrus grove that's just barely making a profit, between greening and freezes every 30 years and whatever other issues you might have. But it's always been like that.
Here's a more local history lesson about citrus. In the 1940s, when a group of Czechoslovakians came via New York and started a town they named Masaryk Town after their Czechoslovakian president, they were going to have citrus as their industry. And that first year, they got totally frozen out. So they thought, well, we're not going to try that again. And they went to, what did they go to?
Chickens,
yeah. And for a good 50 years, they were the chicken capital of the world. So.
And you could still go online if you Google it and find a picture of the annual chicken plucking contest that was held in Spring Hill. I don't think it hasn't been held for many years, has it?
No.
Okay. But they used to have an annual chicken plucking contest because they raised a huge number of chickens. Wasn't it Hurricane Donna that put an end to that?
No. Oh, no. It didn't put an end to that. That was in the 60s. It put a beginning to the Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was flooded. Masaryk Town was flooded. And then they built, if you go just a block behind that Masaryk Town Cafe, you'll see a huge ditch. That's, what they did to deal with the flooding. It's called the Masaryk Town Canal. And it helped start the water management district. And that's what Hurricane Donna did. But no, they continued another good 34 years with their chicken industry after that. So he's laughing at me because I grew up there. That's what he is.
But you weren't
as a
involved
teenager
in the chicken industry, were you?
I wasn't involved in the chicken industry. Sometimes I was on a chicken crew. I'd pick up a chicken by its legs, and I'd catch one, pick it up by the legs, and hand it off to the next person who was going to vaccinate it.
Okay. We're going to have Laura on here soon, early next year, to talk about backyard poultry and raising chickens, because I know a lot of people are interested in that now. So, and Lily, you can chime right in because it sounds like you're pretty knowledgeable with it too.
Oh no, yeah, no, she knows a lot.
I don't know anything about raising chickens. But Leanna has a very, very easy to answer question here. Can I plant lettuce and carrots now? Yes. Now is a very, very good time to plant them. And something you could do with fast growing crops like lettuce, carrots, spinach, kale, a lot of other things, is plant some now. In a few weeks, plant a little bit more. In a few weeks, plant a little bit more. And you can have a staggered harvest all the way up until it warms up, like in March. So March is kind of the end of the cool season growing time. And can blueberries tolerate freezing temperatures without covering them? Yes. You don't have to cover blueberries unless we get a very late frost and the blueberries are already growing and blooming and have little tiny blueberries on them.
Going to berry.
This time of year, leave your blueberries uncovered because they need that cold weather and those cold temperatures to trigger them to flower and get blueberries in the spring. So if you guys have any other questions, just please feel free to post them and kind of chime right in there. And let me show, if you have any questions for Lily, how to get in contact with her. That's Lily's email there. So, Lily, when do you think when are you planning on having your next rain barrel class if people want some more information about that or they want to sign up for it?
Probably January. Let me look. We're trying to work on that right now. I'm thinking probably the evening of January 21st will be like a 6 o'clock Zoom class with the rain barrel, and then 7 we'll start the compost portion that you usually cover. And then the following Saturday is January the 23rd. Is that Arbor Day? Is that the same day?
I'm not sure. Let me check my schedule here.
Yeah. If we do that, we might do it at the same time as Arbor Day. How you get a hold of your barrel and your bin is you show up at the Master Gardener Nursery that Saturday to pick it up after having attended the Thursday evening Zoom class. So that would be kind of cool if they could also pick up a little tree or something the same time, depending on what you guys are working out. But you can always go shopping at the nursery while you're there.
We are hoping to have an Arbor Day class on Zoom the evening of January 14th, which is a Thursday, and then handing out free trees for people who attend that class either the next day at our office or that Saturday at the nursery. That's all still very much up in the air. But Arbor Day weekend is going to be January 14th to 16th. So if you're planning a rain barrel and compost bin class, the time period of January 21st to 23rd, then that's fine. There's no conflict there.
I can't do the first and third Saturdays. I can't be there to give you your rain barrels. I have another obligation.
Okay. Well, like I said, we're tentatively doing the Arbor Day class on the 14th. We'll work it out. We'll just go ahead and stack things up on Zoom, and we'll just spend like the whole day and the whole evening on Zoom, I guess. Because
we do that anyway.
Yeah, there's some days where I'm doing that anyway. So
yeah, something interesting is, both. I don't have to do near as many as you do reports, but I do turn in like a quarterly report, and the amount of people I reached in 2021 in January through March was about 1,000 people with different classes and stuff that I did. March through June, which was entirely Zoom, 8,869 people is how many I reached. I know you reached a whole lot more than that as well. So, don't be led to believe we're never going to do in-person things again, because we are, but we're not going to give up the online as well. It's going to be hybridized once things get back to normal.
Yeah, because when I looked at our numbers for this past March, April, and May, the number of classes that we held doubled, and the number of participants tripled from the previous year. So there was a lot of interest. The nice thing about, I know with me doing Zoom classes, I'm able to get University of Florida researchers and specialists and experts on who normally wouldn't be able to drive to Hernando County to do that in person just because of their schedules.
Right.
So that's an added benefit also. So if you're ever wondering, well, how do I find out about what kind of classes you guys have coming up on Zoom or Facebook Live or whatever else it might be? If you just go to www.hernandoextension, all one word.com, we have a freestanding web page there, and that's a full list of all the different classes and activities that we have scheduled. So when we plan something out and schedule it, we put it on Facebook events, and then that automatically feeds that web page. So that's going to be the most up-to-date information as soon as we have it planned out, as far as the days, the time, the speaker, what we're doing. Things get a little hectic sometimes. I know that sometimes I fall a little bit behind with scheduling things and getting that Facebook event made. But if the best way to follow both of us, just follow us on our Facebook pages. That way you're going to have the most up-to-date information about what we have coming up. Along with, we share a lot of other interesting information, articles. I know that we had a lot of information recently on how to protect your plants from cold weather, because every time a cold front is coming, all of a sudden people still call. Should I cover this? Should I cover that? How should I cover it? We still get questions about that.
And if you want to see any of my classes or videos, a lot of them are now on Hernando County Government YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube and look up Hernando County Government, eventually it's going to be populated with all sorts of stuff, but right now I'm the easiest way to get content on there. So like most of the stuff is mine. And so I did like an impromptu class pre-recorded on Monday because that freeze was coming. So that's kind of a short one that you can watch to get what I just talked about how to cover things properly and all of that. And then Wednesday's class was about your winter landscape in general. So we do try to stay on topic.
Mm-hmm. And see, another advantage is that Buddy doesn't have to drive all the way here from Tallahassee. So that's obviously a bonus.
Yes. I'm sure the Leon County Extension Office is great as well.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't you've had someone from them there on one of your classes, I think.
Yeah. Here on the virtual plant clinic, we tend to get people from all over Florida. And I know that we have a marine biologist, Brittany Hall Scharf, and she's done classes where she's had people from around the world. There were people from Europe and Germany and Australia, although I think we had somebody on the plant clinic once before from Australia. So that's just kind of an extra benefit. We can, have people from all around the world joining us very easily. So Sean is planning on getting a rain barrel from you, and he has a question: are additional rain barrels available at a cost?
Well, rain barrels cost. Rain barrels are $50. If you are a customer of Hernando County Utilities, you get a one-time in your life rebate of $25 for your first rain barrel, that you buy and take home. You get that as a credit on your water bill. You are welcome to purchase any other rain barrels after that. You do have to attend a workshop each time. I tell people I need a body per barrel. So if a couple comes to a workshop, they can purchase 2 barrels, and their first one, they'll get the $25 credit on. After that, it's $50 per barrel. That's our cost. That's our bulk cost. All you're doing is reimbursing utilities. And if you have a family of 4 and you're all over the age of 5 and you want to attend, you can get 4 rain barrels. That's fine as well. Just email me and I'll get all the upcoming information and all of that to you.
And Carolyn
thank you, Carol.
class yesterday on winterizing your Florida landscape. So
thank you. And if you missed it, it's on my Facebook page, on the Zoom recording, as well as on Hernando County Government YouTube. And when it's on there, Hernando County Government Broadcasting adds intro and outro music and all kind of fun things. So.
And I think a lot of people like the virtual and in person. Leanna likes both. I know.
Right, but Leanna also has the same issue that you and I do, Dr. Lester. She works Monday through Friday. So virtual can be a lot easier unless, we have evening or weekend classes as well.
Because I know even with these plant clinics, I see we have 16 people on right now at this moment. Now, over the next week or so, because this is saved on Facebook as a Facebook Live video, we'll probably get a couple hundred more views of this. So a lot of people watch it and enjoy it either that evening, because they had to work, or at their leisure, whenever they have some free time, they can go back and watch it. So I think it's a real bonus. It gives us a chance to talk to even more people than we normally would purely in person.
And I think we have learned a lot too. Every time we do something, every time we teach something, we learn something. But in this new world order, wow, it's a challenge to us. We're doing more classes. We're able to do once a week because we don't have to worry about scheduling a room, and things such as that, or driving someplace to do it. But also, when we did, and we will continue to do in person, but when we did in person, I could drive to one library one day and teach a class, and then 2 days later go to some community hall, teach the exact same class. Now that everything's being recorded, they don't want to see any Lily or Bill reruns. So it challenges us to try and keep it new and interesting as well.
Yes, and I will be sitting down next week planning out next year's classes and exactly what we're going to offer, and it's going to be great. I don't have it all planned out yet, but I know at least it's going to be great. So we're in the process of doing that. And we got one last question here. And Frank says, I have potato vines on my property. How do I get rid of them? I have 5 acres. I think they're also on the adjoining property. I am in Seminole County. So let me go ahead and give a plug for something that will answer all your questions, basically. I'm involved with a citizen science program called the Air Potato Patrol, that for the last several years, we have a website. Here's the address, airpotatobeetle.com. And we have tutorial videos that you can go on there and watch. If you want to join up and become a member of the Air Potato Patrol, it's a citizen science program where we ask volunteers, and we have people, I think about 550 people or so across the state, and even in a couple other states as far away as Texas, because they have air potato vines all the way around the Gulf Coast. And what we do is we send surveys to them. They answer the questions about when do the air potato vines start to grow in the spring? When do they die back in the winter? Do you have air potato beetles present on the vines? When do you have them? And that information, we work closely with Florida Department of Agriculture, and the researchers there use that information to learn more about the biological control beetles, how well they survive, where they're at, how good of a job they're doing. So it's a really great program between basically 2 parts. We're doing research, we're collecting research data, and we're also teaching and informing the public about how to identify air potato vine, ways to control it, all about the beetles. So if you go to that website and watch the videos, that will answer all your questions on air potato. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me through the website or just directly at my email. Let me go ahead and show that one more time here.
You have such a nice short email.
Yes, my email is easy to remember. Yours is just too long. I can't remember it.
At least it's just Lily B. I mean, Browning's not in there. That would make it even longer.
It could be longer, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see if we have any last minute questions here. I think Sean is all straight on rain barrels, so you can.
And I have a note. I wrote down a note to email Sean, so I'll let him know dates and all the pertinence. So.
Okay, well, guys, thank you very much. I think we're going to wrap it up. I just want to make a real quick mention that we will be back here again next Thursday, and we should have Dr. Whitney Elmore with us next Thursday at 10 a.m. Same place here on Facebook and also on YouTube Live. We will be here the week after that. I'm not sure who the guest is going to be at this point, but we're hoping to have another guest then.
I won't be here on the 17th.
Okay. The week after that is Christmas Eve, and we will most likely not be here. Is that correct?
It's a county holiday.
Okay.
Well, let me see. What are they doing? Christmas Eve? Yeah, with it being a Thursday, and Christmas being a Friday, those 2 days are county holidays.
Okay, so we will most likely not be here Christmas Eve. And the week after that, of course, is going to be New Year's Eve. So we will most likely.
I'll be around then. Yeah. I'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be here too.
Yeah.
I have no plans for New Year's Eve in the morning.
We're old and boring. We'll be here.
Yeah, 10 a.m. is a little early to be starting on New Year's Eve festivities.
Well,
anyway.
And nobody needs to be gathering in groups or anything anyway. We just need to make sure the year gets out. That's all we need to do.
So, Sharon, we'll probably be here New Year's Eve. So you can go ahead and mark that on your calendar. Like I said, follow us on Facebook. I always make a Facebook event for it, and we make a Facebook post so that you can find that week's link and exact spot to go to be able to tune in. So we will keep you advised as we get a little bit deeper into the holidays here. So with that, everyone, thank you very much. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. Lily, thanks again for helping out.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, great. And we will see you again here next Thursday. Thanks. See you then.
Bye-bye.